Welcome to the Political Insider. Today we're going to talk about a very, very serious topic that could be quite explosive, especially in the backdrop of some of our political happenings over the last couple of days and weeks. Within the next week, on the 23rd of July, there's going to be a vote on the individual budgets of the individual ministries in Parliament. And there's some conjecture here, and this is definitely going to go, the lawyers are definitely going to get involved. But the Democratic Alliance has threatened not to vote in favor of certain of the budgets of certain of the departments. These are the departments that are run by corrupt ANC ministers. We've got Thembi Simelane at Human Settlements. She mysteriously got gifted a coffee shop and paid the money back, but there's just no paper trail. Minister in Kabani, Minister of Higher Education, lied to Parliament. Then there's the police ministry. We don't know. The minister's on paid leave because he may or may not be involved in some nefarious activity. Then, of course, there's the budget of the president himself, the presidency. South Africa's developed this new thing called a super presidency. It's almost like having a king of a country. The president kind of runs everything out of his own office, and they've got a massive budget. And there's a very good chance that these budgets will not be passed because you need more than 50%. ANC has 40%. They've got a few parties they can bank on. These are the parties that depend on the ANC for what little bit of money they get. Patricia de Lille, she gets a ministry. We know that Gayton McKenzie has to be surgically removed from Cyril Ramaphosa's rectum, as well as, a couple of the other smaller parties, ACDP. Not them, not ACDP. In fact, the dead opposite, Al Jamar. These are parties that are linked to the ANC and will do their bidding. But it's not going to get them more than 50%. They might have to rely on our friends at Action SA or even try and convince the EFF to vote for these particular ministries' budgets. Where the legal problem comes into it is that there's two schools of thought, and this has to be tested in court, as to whether all the budgets have to be accepted or passed in Parliament, or do each one have to be accepted individually? Now, let me explain to you why this matters, is that if all of them are not successfully voted for in Parliament, you have what's called the division of finance that they have to vote for. And basically what that means is that if you've got $1,000 and you decide that you're splitting it 300, 400 between three ministries, if you don't pass one of those ministries, you can't say, okay, pass the other 300 and 400, we'll leave this 300 over here. Because maybe the dispute is that this is the ministry that needs 400. So in other words, we can't pass the other two ministries. I don't know if that makes any sense, because this might be the ministry that needs to get the 400. So in other words, you either vote for the whole lot, the whole division of revenue, as it's called, remembered, and then everybody gets their money as the Minister of Finance has put forward, or else nobody can get their money because every department's dependent on the whole float. And I don't see how these parties are going to agree to vote on this division of revenue because there's just too much conjecture. I mean, how do you support the budget of corrupt ministers? The DA has said they're not going to vote for it. But then again, they also said they weren't going to allow the Bella Bill to be turned into law, and it was. They also said they're not going to allow their deputy minister to be fired, and then did nothing when he got fired. So I don't know if anybody has seen John Steenhuisen in the shower, whether he has those things that you need to make hard decisions. We haven't seen it in public, but he does wear suits. But maybe if the Democratic Alliance doesn't vote for these particular ministry budgets, The whole system could come crashing down. What happens then? Well, basically, we keep on hearing about, in America, how they're going to have a budget standstill where they can't pay workers. We're going to have pretty much the same thing. South Africa could come to a grinding halt. Then the real question is, if South Africa comes to a grinding halt and the government can't spend its money, so therefore none of the government workers can work, would we notice it? Because South Africa might finally be put to the test. If our civil servants don't pitch up for work, would anybody notice? We'll have to wait and see next week, but this is a pretty serious issue. We're making light of it, but let's not, because if this budget doesn't pass, this will definitely cause economic and political waves that we are not even considering right now. And following the firing of deputy ministers, plus the Minister of Police being fingered as being part of drug syndicates and killing gangs. Who knows where our politics finds it at the moment, but my Lord, load up on the popcorn. There's a lot to watch here. Thank you for joining me on the Political Insider. We'll see you again soon.